The other day, I was wasting my time on social media and I came across someone's bio which says, "To perfection, I prefer reality." I thought it was quite a nice concept for a social media environment, because we know how we fake reality in social media to perhaps appear different or cooler or anything. And I wanted to take note of this sentence, perhaps to apply it, to some of my writing or something. But as soon as I was writing it, I realized my art practice has always aimed at the opposite. And actually, I rather prefer perfection than reality. Perfection intended as a way to achieve the illusion of what's unreal. If we take the reality as a concept of mistakes, limitations, errors, I thought perfection could be the driver for fighting the common things and achieving what is a dreamlike sensation and aesthetic. In this sense, perfection became a tool to find form, which not necessarily means the research of beauty, but the research of what doesn't exist already. And I think art in my practice has a lot to do with things that don't exist or cannot exist at that level of perfection. Perfection sometimes can happen in nature. Some people say as a God's creation or mathematical formulas, but hardly happens when humans try to replicate it. And I'm not saying that is not beautiful, but if I remember my first experiment as a draftsman, I was in my teenage, and I wanted to replicate common objects of that time. For instance, there was floppy disks, I remember, or VHS. I had a toy which was a music box, and I wanted to find a way how to replicate it in a printing-like manner, to make it perfect, to make it unreal, to make a drawing which didn't look like a real drawing, but it looked more like a machine-made drawing. And we often connect the machine to the perfection. And then I went on, and I started discovering computer tools to make technical drawings, until a point I found out, of course, coding. And I think generative art really opened a new world to that mechanism of achieving the impossible. The entire journey of this research was then composed into a book, Micromegalic Inscriptions. And this book focuses on two main moments that inspired me, that were the Baroque and Rococo printing methods. My entire research, which is now 8 years long, revolves about the beauty of one element that really fascinates me, which is the line. The line intended as a tool for drawing, but as history went on, became a tool for painting almost, or creating printing-like images. But a line also intended as a threshold for urban environment or for celestial environments, for instance. We know the constellations are connected with segments between stars, and which are points to us. Or I always loved the Nazca line, that were these mega ornaments in this desert of Peru, which represented these images for the sky. And I can go back to the cave paintings, but I think the moment in which line became a really powerful tool that changed our society, it was with printmaking. And in there, I found all my interest in complexity, variety, quantity, and perfectionism connected to line work. Because with the early press, so the first time we've been able to produce mass-produced images and drawings that could navigate the world very simply, very lightly, and could create a globalization of art styles. It was during the Baroque time and the Rococo. And the masters achieved a few ways to use interactive lines to create light and shadow, which are the basic two tools to create a picture content. And then I thought, can I apply those mathematics to create a digital art which is contemporary? It reflects the style of our time, but it is still complex, elegant, and is able to express the power of an abstract painting. And then my research, get into all these topics and started analyzing first these classical standards, some attempts in modern history to replicate that technique, to the point of creating this machine-like environment, which is of course coded and digitalized, that was able to inscribe, engrave, and etch a digital canvas or a digital plate. When someone starts experimenting with processing or whatever tool or language software he uses, there is a time in which you're more of a horizontal artist, so you test different exercises, almost different languages, but without having a thread that connects the many. The only thread perhaps is the technology, which is not enough, I think, as a conceptual research. And then there is a time when you find your way, and then you get better and better and better in that language, in that research, and you perhaps feed that research with other inputs that can be philosophical, can be historical, can be, again, technical, but as an evolution of that specific technique applied to that research and language. So I remember the first time, after many failures, as many of you code and know that when a code doesn't work, either doesn't show anything, or it just shows some unwanted results. Perhaps they can not reflect your imagination, your ideas, your starting idea, or they can just be not pleasing or not successful aesthetically. But I remember the first painting of the series, which then I titled Micromegalic Inscription. When this one appeared, I felt like a miracle happened. I can't forget that moment in which I saw it and I realized my life is about to change. From that moment on, I had lots of people who showed interest in this research. I won some awards. And I started to get noticed for that language. Until the point that I always searched for ways to transform the digital into the physical. And I think in the past, that was the main issue for digital artists. How can you transform something which was born in an immaterial mind and then create it in an immaterial world into something that is physical, so people can feel it, not on computer. Smartphones weren't properly there. So for digital art, it was not something you could really enjoy like today. You had to find a way to make it physical. And it was such a struggle because, the translation between two worlds don't always work. And then NFT happened. And finally, many artists found a support to certify and store their digital ideas. There are some artists who play with the blockchain itself, so use blockchain as a tool to create art. Some artists, like me for instance, that use the blockchain as a material to store art, as a support to certify art. And that was the line where all points meet. I started, experimenting in a moment of confusion 2 years ago with various ways of making NFTs that were reflecting my research, but there wasn't much known about should artists adjust to the community standard, should artists not adjust, just keep doing what they used to do before as a digital artist, before the crypto art movement. And it was a moment where many did mistakes. I did mistakes as well. And mistakes in blockchain are the ones you can regret because you can't erase them. And then for many years I was interested in representing series of digital paintings that were connected to various themes. And one theme in classical art that I always found exciting, it was all the mythological themes, the 4 seasons, the continents, the way they were represented in classical art. Which, taken from mythology, the continents were connected to some anthropomorphic figures, and the seasons as well. And I developed this series which was called The 4 Elements as 101s, which I minted in Super Rare last year. And then that series opened the door to another concept that I was exploring, which is the 4 seasons. For many artists, even the more contemporary ones, has been a theme which gives a lot of inputs, because it gives different ways to look at the same thing. Even in our life, it gives a different way to look at our gardens, at our houses, at our feelings, at our sensation of temperature and the light as well, the way the light changes our environment. So if you want it or not want it, if you're not an artist or just anything you do in life, you're going to be affected. And many artists have attempted, to describe those changes. Some people with colors, some people with elements that represent seasons, that can be the snow, the rain, the burnt grass, the dry soil. The Impressionists and the en plein air painters explored that world a lot. But it was something that in the classical time happened as well. Again, more connected to myths and gods. So I teamed up with the Nifty team who wanted to curate this project. And for this project, I wanted to bring it as a 1-year-long project that explored these 4 moments of the year in the blockchain as a celebration in our community, a reminder of the 4 seasons, in my own language, of course, as my own attempt to bring to that theme my interpretation. And so we thought about this project divided into 4 moments during 2023. The main artworks, the driver of the series, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And then some artworks that welcome those main 4 pieces, but they are anticipation of seasons. For instance, before summer, after spring, almost winter, and other moments of the year, which in a way help us to soften those thresholds that in a way divide these 4 moments.